everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Successful Women's TV show on Everyday Woman TV. My name is Galit Ventura-Rozen. I am co-founder of Everyday Woman TV and a professional speaker. One of my favorite things to do is spotlight amazing women that are empowering others and doing what they love from all over the world. Today, I am excited to have with me Shane from my city, Las Vegas. Welcome, Shane.
Hi, Galit. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited that I get to actually see you in person too. I just ran into you at a charity event a few weeks ago. A lot of my guests I don't get an opportunity to meet in person, so it's nice to have a fellow Vegas person with me. What's the right word? What do we call ourselves?
Las Vegans?
Las Vegans. There we go. I was going to be like vegans.
Yeah.
Las Vegans. It sounded too much like vegans.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to share a little bit about Shane. And of course, it's not going to be her entire bio. She's accomplished so much in her career. And then we're going to jump right into our topic, which I think is so important. It's one of those things that as business owners and entrepreneurs, we try not to deal with because we don't understand it, but it's so important to do. And we're going to be talking today about asset protection and legacy planning. Asset protection and legacy planning. Such big words for me today, Shane, such big words. So I'm going to share a little bit about her and then we'll jump right in. Shane Jasmine Young is the owner and attorney at Young Law Group. She is the founder, which is so amazing. And she's gotten 22 times, she's gotten the Best of Las Vegas as a winner, which is a very big deal, which shows a lot because that is voted on by your peers and your clients. Shane focuses her practice on legal life planning, including trusts and estates, business, long-term care, kids protection, and pets protection, which I love with 3 fur babies. She is passionate about educating, counseling, and providing exceptional value and service to the community. And I can tell you she really does that every day. She is a wife and a mother of 5 and a business owner, of course. She's dedicated to empowering others to make well-informed decisions for themselves, their loved ones and children, and their businesses, as well as other assets, keeping families and business owners out of court and conflict, yay, providing true peace of mind and achieving goals such as protection, legacy, and generational wealth. Some of my favorite words.
Mine too.
All right, let's jump in and let's start talking about this topic because I think it's so important. So first I want us to start with Shane, for those of us that are listening or those that do not know a lot about what this actually means. Let's start there. Asset protection and legacy. It's just so important to recognize how you need that for your future, for your business, for today, please.
Right. So when we think of asset protection, there's so many different ways that we can protect and shelter our assets. The most common way to lose assets, we see this happen all the time, is we're so busy building our businesses, building our assets, building our wealth, but we don't have a proper estate plan in place for when something happens to us. If we become incapacitated, of course, when we pass away, when we die. So we see a lot of wealth lost in those transitions because if there's not a legal plan in place, the government gets involved. A probate judge is the one that's making decisions about your assets and who gets them and your family. Taxes are assessed, whether it's capital gains, estate taxes. There's so many things that can happen when we don't have planning in place. So that's the first step in asset protection when we're talking about a legal plan is an estate plan. So if you're incapacitated when you pass away, we want to make sure that you have proper planning in place that includes things like wills and trusts and powers of attorney. If you've got children, a kids protection plan for your minor children so that if you don't make it home, who can step in and care for them, short-term, long-term. Same thing with your fur babies, a pet's protection. right? If you're a business owner, which, many of us are, having a plan for our businesses, a business continuity plan, a business succession plan, making sure that our business is actually part of our overall estate plan, because that's an asset too, right? A lot of business owners forget about that. They might have the one part about the estate plan, in place, or they might be thinking about it. Most people don't have an estate plan. Actually, 70% of people don't have one. And for those that do have them, they oftentimes don't have a proper plan in place, or it's very cookie cutter form documents. They don't cover all of the things that actually need to be covered to keep our families out of court, keep our assets, within our families, to be able to pass from one generation to the next, to avoid taxes, and all of those types of things. So when we talk about our business needs to be incorporated into our estate plan as an asset. One of the things that we do through our planning process is we create what's called a family wealth inventory. It's essentially an inventory of any assets that you have. We want to make sure that they're properly identified, tracked, and titled correctly from this point moving forward, so that if and when anything happens, your spouse, your family, your kids, they have everything as far as your assets in one place, so that nothing gets lost and ends up in the state's unclaimed property department, or has to go through probate, or gets taxed unnecessarily. So that's one component. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah, I feel like so let's break it down. Yeah. I want to go back a little bit and break it down.
Okay.
Just a little bit for everybody listening. So that's a great little overview. Obviously, it's not small, but it's a lot to do. Mm-hmm. One of the things I want to do when we talk today is I want to really push and share how important this is and why, because your job as the attorney is to take and get the information and put together the paperwork. So those that are listening and watching, don't get overwhelmed by what Shane is saying. I have been in commercial real estate for 27 years, and law is a big part of my business, and I still get overwhelmed by that stuff. So I want you to recognize that that's why you hire someone like Shane. She understands it. She just gathers the information, works with you, finds out what you want, what's important to you, and then she knows what needs to be done. So deep breath, everybody. Deep breath. It's a lot. But let's break it down a little bit. Mm-hmm. When we own anything, I don't care. What happens a lot of times is people think, well, I don't really own that much, or I don't have that much. Mm-hmm. And then people don't go and do what they need to, which is the estate planning and all of those things. Right. So I really want to push forth that it doesn't matter how far along you are, how much money you have. Even if you just own a car and have one dog, it doesn't matter at the end of the day when you're not taking care of the paperwork, and it really is all paperwork, that it's not done correctly. Now, when you pass on, when you're 110, we're going to go there. Now you're leaving behind a real headache for your family. Right. And that's kind of like where I like to go, Shane. Mm-hmm. I want to take everyone there just for a few minutes, because for me as a mom of 3, even though they're all adults and over 18, having a wonderful man in my life, and we're not married, so he doesn't have this legal right, and 3 doggies, a bunny and a bird, it's important to me to make sure that things are taken care of when I'm 110 and I'm not here anymore. Right. So could you take us there just for a little bit about the experiences that you've had where someone goes, oh, Shane, I'm hoping no one, or you've heard of stories where they haven't taken care of this and now what happens?
Yeah. So I'll actually take you back even further before I really got into this particular practice. And my why for focusing on this area is when I was a first year law student, or actually first year lawyer. So this is almost 20 years ago. Okay. My first pro bono case where I was volunteering my time was a probate case where there was a family didn't have, means to pay attorneys to have to go through this process. But the father had passed away. The siblings and some other family members were fighting over this estate. And it wasn't a huge estate. The things that were involved were, a house, very common, a house, some bank accounts, some investment accounts, pretty modest estate.
But for them, it was a big deal. Right. And for them, it caused an issue.
It does. And in most states, in Nevada, I can speak to Nevada specifically, there's an embarrassingly low threshold that triggers a probate. So it's $25,000. Most states have a very similar, very low threshold. So if you have any assets that are valued at over that amount, it triggers a probate when someone passes away. And most of us have that, right? Whether it's bank accounts or investment accounts, real estate, most of us have a home, even if we have a mortgage and we owe, a debt on those assets. It's not the debt or the liens or anything like that. The mortgage, those things don't get taken into consideration when we're talking about probate. It's the value of the asset. So in that particular case, this family was going through this process. They were fighting. The father actually had an estate plan. He had a trust. He had a revocable living trust. He worked with an attorney. Unfortunately, that attorney didn't put a proper plan in place. It was very cookie cutter transactional. Here you go, sign your documents. Okay, you're good to go. Never had an ongoing relationship. So the father thought that things were taken care of. He told his family, look, I've got an estate plan. Check that off my to-do list. Everything will be fine. Well, he never updated it, and it wasn't properly put in place in the first instance. At the time that he put it in place, he was married. And he didn't identify and properly fund his assets to his trust. So that's another important part when we're talking about setting up a trust, not just having the paperwork, but understanding that there's a process of retitling or re-registering, updating beneficiaries. So if you think of a trust as a box, you want all of your assets to go inside of that box or be connected to the box, because anything outside of the box is subject to probate. And that's exactly
and probably be revisited. I'm assuming, like when we're starting as young as me and you, we have to revisit it often, probably, and also make sure that it's staying updated.
Exactly. And that's what, so I recommend looking at, reviewing and updating your plan at least every 3 years. Really every year you should be looking at your plan.
Wow. Okay.
Change. Yeah. The laws change, your life changes, your assets change. Well, in that example that I mentioned, that pro bono case, that particular individual, that father had put this plan in place, didn't review it, didn't revisit it, never heard from the attorney again. At the time that he put his plan in place, he was married. He had since, separated from his wife, but she was still listed as a beneficiary on some of his assets, like his retirement accounts and some of his other assets that were not properly funded to the trust. So that was a point of contention with his children, who were saying, hey, we're supposed to get these assets. Our father wanted us to have them. He wouldn't want his ex-wife to have them. But he didn't update it. They ended up in the probate system. Even for that simple estate, it took over 2.5 years. So it's
wow.
Yeah, it's all these fees that come out of a probate. So probate does not benefit us at all. A judge is making decisions. It's very expensive, not just attorney's fees, but
emotionally exhausting, I am sure.
Yes. And so it's conflict, where these family members, and even within, so it was the siblings or the children on one hand, the ex-spouse on the and her family on the other side. And then even within, the siblings, they were fighting. So it was just a huge mess. And I saw at that point, as this new attorney, I was like, wait, hold on, how can this happen? Because this father had paid an attorney. He paid an attorney over $2,000 to put this, plan in place. He thought that it was going to work. It completely failed. It fell apart. This family still ended up fighting and in court, having to pay all these additional fees and expenses that should have been avoided. So that's really what got me interested in, okay,
I love that.
Yeah, what can we do? We need to make sure that this doesn't happen.
I think that's one of my favorite things. I think that's something that so many women that are watching and listening can relate to, Shane. Oh, excuse me. Because sometimes we end up doing something we never thought we would do. I mean, even though you went to law school and you wanted to be a lawyer, but oh, wow, look what happened and transpired from one experience. And I love that when women on my show share that type of story, because a lot of what we do when we're heart-centered, like you and I, is we come from passion and purpose. Yeah. We come from wanting to help others. And I see that with you all the time, that a lot of what you do is about passion and purpose. And also women. Of course, you work with men and you love working with whatever gender, it doesn't matter. But the point is that you also have a passion to empower women So I'm sure you absolutely love, aside from helping everybody else, helping women put together their plan and their estate. I'm sure you work with a lot of women that are divorced or single as well, that don't have families,
Right.
because we sometimes don't think we need these things. So
Right.
thank you, first of all.
No, it's my pleasure. It really is, it's my honor. And I really see women, as the driving force behind putting planning in place. It's typically the woman, whether it's, a single woman or, if, many times, these women are married, but we are the ones that are the driving force behind putting planning in place, because many times our male counterparts are focused on other things, or they don't want to think about it. But we as women are often the ones that carry the burden. We outlive our, male partners, in most cases. We are the ones that are typically the caretakers, of our children, of our elderly. And we're kind of sandwiched in this, in this dynamic of life where we're constantly trying to make sure that everyone else is taken care of, but we don't realize that we also need to take care of things for ourselves, because if and when we don't do that, it ends up with a mess for, our family,
for the people we love. And we just spent our entire life taking care of the people we love. So I want to jump in for our last few minutes about how long does something like this take? So people that are listening and getting overwhelmed, I want them to recognize that it's really not that difficult of a process, and that you're leading them and you're hand holding them and you're working with them. And you've done this for so many years, 22, that you know how to do this. So how long does something like this take for someone to work with you?
Yeah. So it starts with a family wealth planning session. So if someone calls my office and wants to book a session with me, it's a one-on-one session. Normally it's $750, but for the viewers, for, your audience, I will offer a complimentary family wealth planning session, for if they're single, for them, if they're married, or have a partner, we can work together with the family, where we will do a session. We can do an in-person session. We can do virtual, whether you're in Nevada or not. We work with clients all over the states. During that family wealth planning session, we'll talk through what the specifics are. What are the things that are important to you? What are the family dynamics? What are the assets that you have? Do you have a business? What are we wanting to do? What are the things that you want moving forward if anything were to happen? And so we talk through all of that. We do a discovery process. We do an analysis of what happens. So even if you have an estate plan in place, I review it to see, okay, so this is what would happen, right now, based on where things are, whether you have a plan or not. How are we wanting things moving forward? Okay, let's go ahead and break that down. And these are my recommendations for how we achieve the goals that you have.
I love
and we go into those options. Yeah.
You're really listening to your clients. It's really about what they want to accomplish. And then now you go to work analyzing things, and you come back to them with some kind of plan of where you think the paperwork should land and what they should be using. And then what are the next steps?
And so once we have that first session, once a client says, yes, I want to go forward, I'm good, I'm on board with this plan, we actually do the design at that very first meeting. So I budget an hour and a half to 2 hours. Just so we can make it a working, productive meeting where you're leaving that meeting with something actually done, and we're moving.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I do also include, because we do the design, we immediately start drafting the plan, and we implement a limited power of attorney, so that if, God forbid, something happened, and as we were moving through the process before you signed the final documents, if something happened to you, we would be able to step in and put your planning in place based on what we have drafted.
Based on what they wanted.
Right.
Wonderful. And I know that every plan is different, but just to give people an idea of a range so they can be ready when they come sit with you, Shane, if you're comfortable with that, because people look at things like this and think, oh my God, I can't afford it. It doesn't make sense. But I'd love for them still to reach out to you and do this. Yeah. What are we looking at range wise for somebody that's more simple? I'm going to say more on the simple side, doesn't have tons of assets, maybe just has a business and a house and things, just simple things like that.
Yeah. So our plans typically start at about 2,500
Okay.
and then they can go up from there. So there's different levels of plans, different types of plans. Everything is customized. So you get to pick the type of plan, pick the features. The more complicated or more asset protection that's included, the
Of
more expensive
course.
the plan. But we really try to meet clients where they are. So the most important thing is being empowered, and being educated to make informed decisions, right? And so once we have, that base, then we're able to say, okay, well, based on where things are with you and what you're looking for, what your budget is or what your concerns are, here are the options. And so I try to meet people
Of
where they
course you
are so
do.
that they have a plan, that
Of
they
course,
are
and we need
comfortable with.
people to recognize that they're building they're paying for something today that's going to last them a very, very long time with just probably more than likely just minor changes or additions, because obviously the goal is to keep building and having more assets. So then we come back to you when we need to be like, okay, Shane, what do I do? I need to add this. I need to change that. I need to go here. I think that people need to recognize it's not going to cost this much every year.
Right.
It's just a matter of this first time. Let's sit down. Let's get it done. Now let's just go in and update and make small changes. I'm assuming you check in with your clients once a year. They check in with you.
We do. And we also have a VIP membership program where you get a bunch of benefits and where we're, more involved and making sure that things are being updated.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, great. So last thing before you tell everybody how to get a hold of you. We've gone through, we've met with you, we've gotten all the paperwork done, everything signed and sealed. We feel good, like everything is taken care of. What happens with those paperworks? Are you giving them to your family? Are you recording? Like, give me just a little bit so those that can understand what happens next.
Right. So after the plan is in place, one of the things that we do is we'll send letters to your fiduciaries. So these are people like agents, like your financial powers of attorney, medical agents. We send them letters that say, hi, you've been named as a potential this or that, just so they have the information and they're able to reach out to us for support if anything happens or when anything happens. So that's part of it. And then ongoing, we do invite the families, to bring, we actually do 3 meetings as part of our process. And so that way, the families are able to bring, whether it's adults, children, or other people that might be involved to those subsequent meetings if they want to include them. We also do an annual review for our VIP members, and we include a legacy component to that. So of course, we like to focus on protecting our financial wealth and our assets, but also part of that wealth is our family wealth, right? The things that are important to our families, like traditions, recipes, our religion, community.
I love that.
So we do, videos,
Pets.
all of those things that are, part of that overall plan, so that we have something to really pass down, not just, our assets and our financial wealth, but also all of those things that are important to, our families, those intangible things.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. That is such a great overview. Just enough for those listening and watching to say, wait, I've really got to reach out and I've really got to work on this. This is so important. Why am I working so hard? So I can make sure everything is taken care of for my family when I'm not here. I think that's important. Could you share with everybody how they can get a hold of you so they can set up this free, what was it called again, Shane?
It's a complimentary family wealth planning session. Family wealth.
I know. I knew it was a lot of words. Complimentary family wealth session.
Yes.
I know I missed a word, but we got the gist.
Yeah.
Planning.
So,
how can they reach out to you to do that?
So I would recommend going to my website, younglawlive.com. So younglawlive.com is actually where you can get access to my on-demand webinar. It's 60 minutes. I go into more detail about, what's a will versus what a trust is, how to protect our assets, the common mistakes that people make. If you've got children, if you've got a business, these different dynamics to be thinking about. So that's a good place to start. Once you watch that video, you actually are able to book a complimentary session on the website. And so that website is amazing for that resource. Of course, you can call my office. It's 702 702-473-5600, 702-473-5600. My email address, I'll give you my direct email, so feel free to email me. It's shane@younglawNV.com. So Shane, SHANE, @younglawNV.com, or you can reach out to client services @younglawNV.com. I'm also on social media at Shane Jasmine on Instagram, at Young Law Group on Instagram, also on Facebook and LinkedIn. So I always welcome messages, from the audience. I love that interaction and that connection. So I'm happy to be able to facilitate the next steps that way.
Wonderful. That was wonderful. The information was so great, so informative. It's one of those things where we try not to think about it, but we need to think about it because we want to be set up so that way everybody's taken care of and we feel calm about that. Also, you made it so easy for people to reach out to you, set up an appointment, and also learn more through the video on your website. So thank you. I'm not surprised.
Well, one thing that I'll offer, Galit, because you're so wonderful in the work that you do, for your followers, for your audience, when they book a session, not only will they get the complimentary session, so that's $750, I'll also give them $500 off of their estate plan. So
that's so wonderful.
Yeah. Just make sure you mention, the show.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. There's no reason now that you shouldn't be reaching out, ladies. Just saying. So I love it. Thank you, Shane. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for giving us your expertise, for doing what you love and you're passionate about, for helping so many people get, in a sense, their ducks in a row. And I appreciate you. And it's so nice being connected to you. Thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure. It's my honor. And thank you so much, Galit.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening and watching another episode of the Successful Women's TV Show. My name is Galit Ventura-Rozen, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.